already paid, bitch, I'm destined. Power in my words, lethal weapon. Young king ain't concerned with you peasants. Migraine, bitch, my crown way too heavy. Better talk to me nice, only move for a price. It might cost you your life, oh no. It's a gamble tonight, don't play with your life. Send my shoes through the night, oh no. Say.
Yeah, cause you're not gonna lie, bro.
Nah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hey, this is
We here.
yeah, we here. This is introduction to Epiphanies About Nothing.
Yes, sir.
G Elijah 144. I'll let everybody else introduce themselves.
Woo got it. Go by Woo. I make music. Trying to figure out what else I want to do creatively. You'll be hearing from me though. And we here to talk about Kabbalah and break down what we see in it.
Definitely. And we got a big homie here as well.
Yes, sir. Big
Sacred
dog.
Serpent, Sacred Serpent 823, Sacred Dark Serpent. Occult psychology, tantra, and Kabbalah, with an added insight to the Kalipov. I am, I'm just a psychologist. I'm a philosopher at the same time, but tantra is my thing, Kabbalah is my thing, and these brothers asked me along for the ride, so I'm here to just have fun. So, peace.
For sure. Appreciate you coming through too.
Yeah, sure. We if you're checking us out, that like kind of what inspired this. Definitely our big homies here, Sacred Serpent.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
For sure. It's all family that we got going on. So yeah, that's introductions to the Epiphanies About Nothing podcast. This is a space for us to talk about, what we got going on, just as individuals and as a collective. But at the same time, this is definitely spiritual focused and, a big kind of discipline of mine and these brothers is Kabbalah, a source of a spiritual tool, technology that has, been around since, the beginning of time, like something that we are all looking to just gain more and a clearer and better understanding on and grow through the process. So anybody tuning into this, appreciate it. You're growing with us. And
Definitely.
Yeah. So if you know about just we spoke about what he got going on Sacred as well. Me definitely kind of spiritualist looking to grow. I have the cannabis business as well, Elijah Green. So check me out on Instagram at the time, Elijah Green 144. Just to know about a little bit more about me and what I have going on. Much appreciate it. But from there, I'd like to kind of just talk about again. This is a spiritual podcast with a focus on Kabbalah. I like to kind of talk about kind of what got all of us into this practice specifically. So I'm happy to speak about what got me into it, but I'm gonna let somebody else take it first.
So pretty much what got me into it was just learning the desire to get closer to God, and it kind of just found me instead of me finding it, whether through post and through watching videos like Hood Mystic or the Chakra Nova podcast, Serpent posting Kabbalah and clip popped all the time. And it just, I had an interest in it and wanted to see what it was about. So that's what led me here. So far, it's been great knowledge, great Hebrew, ancient knowledge that has changed my perspective on this life we live in and the distractions to get us away from our true selves. Broke it down in a way that makes it scientific you know, give you a path to go on to reach God. And I love that. So that's what got me here, and I'm ready to talk about it.
I think for me, um, I I I wanted to have more information. I wanted to have more information about the soul's plight and what's so important about the soul, because you always hear people talk about the soul, and you hear people say things spiritually that are um, can seem sort of fantastic to the average person. And um, as I was digging through my stuff and digging through the work that I was doing, and you know, really wanting to be accustomed to this occult world and the 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 things that go on behind the scenes, you know, not just the regular things that we see every day. And as I understood it throughout this journey, you know, um, the Kabbalah is the science of the soul, and it's the science of the soul's elevation through different channels, and these channels or beacons representing the different phases and the different levels of life. And I wanted to understand it. I wanted to understand what my soul was doing. I wanted to understand how could I connect to my soul. And Kabbalah was the first thing to make it not only conceptualized, which is generally the only way humans can understand a thing as a truth or not a truth, is through concepts, but also through um, levels of understanding in order to be able to transmute one's own energy into something that was more connected with source. And connection with source is everything to me. So Kabbalah, as well as Tantra and Chakra Nova, shadow work, like that's really pretty much everything to me. And so um, I wanted to do Kabbalah because I wanted to understand the science of the soul.
Word.
And yeah, I'll kind of finish it off. Like for me, I think like when it comes to like a connection to source, connection to like power, a higher power is like I grew up in an interesting situation, but at the same time like I grew up with kind of God like in my household too, just in the sense like I'm a PK, like I'm a preacher's kid.
Preacher's kid.
But with that being said, it's like I saw so much stuff with that like it turned me away. Like, just
What you mean by that?
like when people were looking to kind of connect with God like through and when you kind of grew up in that Christian
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you see who the majority of people go to when they're looking to connect with God. And
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have an opportunity to kind of see behind the veil, behind like closed doors of what's going on. It like and living through kind of just living that the black man's experience, like dealing with certain traumas, like
Yeah.
it's like a lot of people may go to like the pastor of a church or something like that to receive guidance, and it's a different experience when like that's your house when you kind of see behind the scenes of what's really going on. It can push you away. So like I'm somebody who, in my experience of life, like I fought so hard to have like a connection. Like I went to college. I went to like a Catholic school.
Mhm.
And like during that time, like Catholicism was like the home of Christianity, right?
Right.
And me, like I saw like how people were really living, like how priests were living, stuff like that. Man, it'll
Yeah.
it'll turn you off.
Yeah, because you ain't trying to live like them
It'll
in the first.
it can possibly conflict your path. So
Mhm.
with all that being said, it's like looking to dealing with all that, knowing that there has to be something beyond just what I see, like because
Yeah.
if everything is based on what I see, to be honest, man, I don't think what I see is really worth it.
Mhm.
if,
Yeah.
if I'm watching all these Marvel movies and Thanos are trying to destroy what I'm seeing, like I ain't really fighting that. But to be honest,
Yeah.
I know that like I'm here for a reason. I know like I come from something intelligent because whether like I choose to believe that I come from something of a higher power, and like Kabbalah is like what I see as kind of being that tool. It's helped me even be able to go back to like some of those Christian groups and things like that. Like I can go back into the Bible and really understand things better for like what it really is, and things like that. So it's helped me find that connection to be able to know that like I am always connected to source and just have that better understanding of source, but know like there's still just so much more to learn and so much more to gain in this life, and just be appreciative, keep it pushing. But this is my discipline. This is kind of what I choose, like to how I express God through me. Like we all have God lives through us, through all of us. So this is how I choose to express it for sure. So yeah, awesome. So we the three of us were speaking earlier, kind of prior to starting this, and so what a big thing that inspired this podcast, of course, me and Serpent we're part of the Chakra Nova podcast on the Hood Mystic channel. So please go subscribe to the Hood Mystic on YouTube for sure, and Instagram. But he had a book club going on a few weeks ago as a part of the Mystery School, a spiritual social media platform that you all should join and be a part of. And he recommended a book called Becoming Like God, Kabbalah and Our Ultimate Destiny. And it was a book that, kind of inspired us to move along. Me and Will talk about how the specific name Epiphanies About Nothing came to be. But so yeah, this was a book that talked about kind of, the mentality of, what Kabbalists could be, and kind of what, majority of folks who are into this kind of where we are, like where our mental is to want to get involved in something like this. So we were looking to break, this book down, and today we will break down the introduction as well as the first 4 chapters, just to, have a point of reference. There's so much text and so many books around Kabbalah that all of us are studying and reading. So we will continuously be discussing various books around the topic, that we're going over, as we continue to learn. But we are here to share the information that we're learning. We, not just to read books and just, take this all in for ourselves, but we want to teach it back to others. And if others have, things that they're looking to, that they think that they can teach back to us, please feel free to reach out, join, all of that. But yeah, so today we will be going over the book. We shared it a little bit earlier, Becoming Like God, Kabbalah and Our Destiny, written by Michael Berg. Yeah, but before we do that, Wu, you want to talk about how we kind of just came up with, the title Epiphanies About Nothing, like what we're doing, what's going
on? Went to the park one day with Jeff, and they have a big festive thing they do every Sunday,
Yeah.
where it's drum circles and things of that nature. And some shrooms came into the picture, and I kept having these epiphanies of just beautifulness, you know. And I said I was having epiphanies about nothing because they just kept coming. And Jeff was like, "Yo, that's a good title." And so we ran with it, you know. And it came to be a double entendre because we're talking about the nothing, which is Kether and Ein. So we're having these epiphanies about God and the Ket, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, if anybody's familiar with DC, you know, Meridian Hill Park, Malcolm X Park, drum circles on Sundays, you know, where you'll normally find me doing my thing with Elijah Green. But yeah, just a lot of, you know, good, dope people that kind of get together. You know, you got the drum circle going on. You got people, artists, dancers, you know, people vending, things like that, just getting together, and just, you know, just expressing themselves as best they can. And
I love going down there too.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
It's a vibe. Like, it's like church on Sunday. Like,
it is a church service, but, you know, way more free than your normal Baptist or Pentecostal service. And yeah, so my man was, you know, he was doing his thing, and you know, like we all do, and kind of came up with the title, and I knew we needed to move forward that in some form or fashion. So you know, that was a great moment, and you know, glad he mentioned that, and yeah, here we are. So
that was God.
So, but, you know, becoming like God. So we're gonna kind of go into, we have notes about kind of the, you know, introduction of first 4 chapters that we wanted to speak on. Again, just in regard to the importance of Kabbalah, like the mentality of you know, what God is here, and then we're looking to express within the book, kind of, you know, stories and things like that, that can connect you to the importance of Kabbalah, and how that can connect you to God, to your God. So, starting with the introduction, the introduction has a title, "The Rock and the Mountain." This is basically kind of a story comparing a rock and a mountain, and how you can compare that to you and God. So the intro is called, again, "The Rock and the Mountain," and it touches upon how, you know, any rock that you see actually has the same nature as a mountain. But when it is disconnected from that mountain, it's no longer called a mountain. It's called just a rock. You know, if, you know, you place that rock back on the mountain, then it's no longer just a rock, it is a mountain again. And just as that rock is spawned originally from that mountain, that is, you know, the same concept of how humans, how me, how Ra, how Wu are actually emerged from God. You know, Jeff is just a person. Jeff is just a human, but I am connected to a source, how I spoke on it earlier. And, you know, that is God. Like, we all are, you know, an expression of God. You know, we are all a piece of God expressed in himself, should I say. And so, you know, this introduction, "The Rock and the Mountain," of how, you know, you can see a big mountain. I've been to Seattle, Washington, Mount Rainier, one of the, you know, the largest, most beautiful mountains. If you look at it, it is a daunting figure, and it is so huge, but at the same time, it is made up of what? Just rock. And if those rocks are separated, then, you know, you don't look at it within its entirety. It's just, that rock is just Jeff. That rock is just Rod. That rock is just Wu. But yeah, like, if we all come together, like, we all can express our God selves. And it's like, you know, humans have souls. Like, that soul is God's essence. Therefore, as humans are like God. Yeah. And anybody kind of want to say anything about that introduction, that concept of a rock being disconnected from the mountain, but at the same time, once that rock is back on that mountain, what is it?
Yeah, man. I love that metaphor too of being the rock separated from the mountain. We have to keep jumping to get back on the mountain. That's our whole task. That's our whole job, is to get back to God. And another part of it that I looked at was, just like the mountain is made of many little rocks, humans, if we all come together, we form God, we form the mountain when we are all together. So it's about brotherhood as well as your single job, a single task to get back to that mountain and to return to source. And I just love that metaphor. And it's no difference between us and God except our awareness and our getting away from our ego connects us back to God. Yeah. So that's what I got to say about it right now.
Right, you there?
Right, about that topic.
Yeah, the sorry about that. The rock in the mountain is, it's perfect as far as trying to connect an understanding between yourself and source. So, a rock by itself only appears to just be a rock. It appears to be just dense material. It appears to be just something extremely basic and regular, so to speak. Whereas, just like a human, when humans are detached from their actual purpose, and what it is that they have been put here to do, they can seem like, almost like a fish out of water, almost just like a rock just sitting on an embankment of some sort. The connection with source is so profound because it teaches you that no matter where that rock is, it's still a part of the source. So you being as far away as possible from your actual purpose doesn't necessarily disconnect you from source. It's your awareness of it that disconnects you from it. And so I think that's a dope comparison when you talk about a rock to a mountain, and then you talk about human beings to source. Um, I think it fits perfectly, and I think it's very self-explanatory.
For sure. And like, we didn't talk about kind of discussing this, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. It's like that idea, humans are individuals. We're humans, but like changing your awareness to become something larger than yourself. I don't know, but like to me, I want to just like touch upon that. Like, what do you think? What do you all think kind of are those hindrances that have people, so many people out here just being individuals and only looking at life as I am me. I am here to live my life, and everything else is kind of
Up for grabs, like just not important,
yeah.
because it's all about the self, like self-preservation. Nobody else matters. But I think that full awareness, if we all had that awareness, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. But that's the opponent. The book talks about this opponent that tricks you into just leading a life full of ego. And yeah, it's all awareness at the end of the day. You got to remind yourself that you are from God, from this source, and to always push to get back to it, because it's a never never ending battle.
And that's a big thing right there. You're talking about ego. Like ego is like, I am who I am. I need this, I need that, to continue to express myself. But like, you can get to that point where it's not about me. It's about the collective. It's about the purpose that I came here for. And like once
finding that purpose with people.
Once you get to that purpose, man, it's like that ego to express yourself just as you, man. Like I hope that wipes that out, because like it's not doing anything for anybody. And like again, I said it already, but humans have souls. That soul is God's essence. Therefore, humans are like God. And I mean, if you don't believe me, like read the Bible. Like in the notes I had a bunch of verses from the Bible that express that very very idea. There if you can go back, there's just so many different points in the Bible that teach that mention. We are created in God's image. Like we are the child of God, and like I know how my dad is. Like, hey man, if as cocky as he is, if he had me, like I'm not just something that wasn't that didn't come from something more than me. Like I came from something that was outside of myself. Therefore, like it is a part of me. So it has to be more than just Jeff going on. Like I come from the source. Therefore, that source is God.
For sure.
Beautiful.
Yeah, man. But
go ahead.
Chapter 1, it was called A Crack in the Prison Door.
Mm-hmm.
And it started off with a story about a prince. Quote, this prince lived in a grand palace, but had a problem. He shudders. Let me get it from the book, because they have a couple typos. One second. All right. So it says, there once was a prince who lived in a grand palace. It was filled with treasures from every corner of the earth. Rugs, tapestries, hand-carved tables, nice things, the best. But it was a problem. His windows were fastened, so not a single ray of sunlight penetrated, and the place lay in darkness. The problem was that the prince was oblivious to all the abundance surrounding him. So he was in a palace full of these nice things and beautiful, anything you want. Gold, man, everything gold, right? But he couldn't see it and didn't know about it because no light was getting into the palace. So there's no God getting into his awareness to see those nice things that he has.
Yeah.
And one day a servant plucked up the courage to ask the prince why he inhabited a palace as dark as the blackest night. And the prince was stunned. He had no idea there was an alternative. The servant opened the palace shutters for the first time, and suddenly the prince could see beauty and abundance everywhere. They had been within reach all along. He simply had been unable to see them. So, let me see. What I got from that was he naturally he didn't know it was an alternative from being in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
See where I got it. He didn't know. It's just natural not to not know that God is in reach in this society, especially.
And a big part of that, like, I mean, that one word that you mentioned earlier, ego, is like we grow up in this Western world, like with everything going on, we watch we watch TV, we look at like so-called celebrities, we think like we want to be like them. We see what people on screens are wearing, and like there's a point, I don't know like what age it is, there's a point where like all that matters and that all that matters to you is like what you and the kids in your neighborhood are doing. Like when you come home from school, you go outside, you play with your boys in the girls' neighborhood. Like y'all are all that matters. Like everything that you see, that's like in your surrounding. But
it's natural. It's like everybody has to go through that. Like, and you'll be weird if you didn't go through that.
Yeah.
It's a part of the process. I feel like is to get that challenge, to get that just to get away from it, to get back to it.
And it's like, what is it? What were you looking for? It's like you were looking for yourself the whole time. You were looking for this treasure. It's like,
yeah.
In this story, what he's saying is you had it the whole time. Like you always had access to it. The prince is you. It's like the princess, whatever like you want to be. You have access to such abundance at any given time, man. And I know me, I've been through it, especially in this last year, opening this business, like thinking that I wanted to hit certain marks that like, what was I comparing myself to? Like people, not me. I was looking to compare myself to other people running, doing their own businesses that really had nothing to do with me and what I wanted to get done. It's like I could look at that person and it's like, what they're doing that may be success for them. It may not, but at the same time, like me looking at what somebody else has and thinking at all that that's what I need. That's the prince living in darkness right there, thinking that thinking that I need something. And when you turn the lights on, you realize, hey, I'm connected to the source. I got everything I need right here. Like what I was blind, man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy, and
I'm so grateful that that somebody opened the blinds, the servant, that I got back to my source and was able to see that everything I had was what I was supposed to have. It was like perfect. Everything was perfect already. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. And, we're not going to change minds just because, we found it, just because we got it. Like other people are still, out here wanting for stuff that really has nothing to do with it. And,
for sure.
We all have our own path to we all gonna learn, at our own pace. So
yeah,
to know, like we've been through this, like this is where we at. What's going on with y'all?
Yeah, I think when it comes to what you're speaking about with the prince and being unaware of the abundances, and so those abundances, as far as I'm concerned, represent the everyday abundances of life, and the dark room, or rather the if the room that you are in is the only thing that you're aware of, right? Because even that room, like it said, he had all of these beautiful things, and then the light, he had no awareness of what he actually had because of the light. Well, the light is a representation of your awareness. So your attention goes, your energy goes where your attention flows. So his energy was stoked on being in the dark and having that particular area that he had for himself, just to himself. But the way he viewed that area ultimately determined how he viewed himself and ultimately how he viewed his current situation. And the light, so to speak, became the adversary to the dark. So there's metaphysical and esoteric components in that. So when a person thinks about the adversary, your adversary is your connection to your so-called understanding of the ego. And so when you think about it on a metaphysical plane, the adversary is the ego. The ego is the adversary to self.
Right.
And so when you're putting these things together and you're trying to understand why he couldn't understand his availability of abundance, what was readily available to him. It's because he was only looking in one particular area, and he was only choosing to look in that one particular area based on his preference. His preference was darkness. He wasn't understanding that that light could actually brighten up his so-called darkness, and it would give him a different perspective. So therefore, he was always going to be unaware of it because he wasn't aware that he could add to it what he already had in order for him to be enlightened with what it is that he actually wanted. And so I say all that to say, when we talk about the ego and we talk about the adversary and we talk about the dark side, we have to be extremely vigilant and disciplined in how we are portraying this to other people. Because in that light, in that sense, we're painting the ego and the adversary as a bad thing. When in actuality, what the teachings are attempting to translate is, your ego, or AKA the adversary, or AKA the devil, is not your bad side. It's just a side that is supposed to be incorporated. Because this idea that you're just going to come upon certain information and you're just going to be led to feel good and everything is going to be good from that time on. Nothing else is ever going to be bad again. That's a bit naive and a bit arbitrary. So what I think the passage is pointing to is a lack of awareness, but it's also pointing to a point of understanding how much awareness you are capable of having.
Dope. And yeah, like just to that point, like, we're speaking about the ego, but to Ra's point, it's like it is something that you need to incorporate. It's not something that you're gonna get rid of fully ever in this lifetime. But you also mentioned self. And I think it's like also kind of important to mention like what we mean by self. And it's not necessarily like thinking about yourself as I am, who I am on this earth. But
Yeah, when I say self, I mean soul. Understand that. When I say self, I mean soul. What the heck, bro?
yeah, I just that's all. I just wanted that point to be clear, like people to understand, like it's about connecting to your soul and your higher self, not just who you thought you were. But yeah.
Another thing, the first chapter talked about was that the prison wall was the desire to receive for the self alone. And the crack in the door is the awareness that we have to receive for the sake of others. Well, not receive, but desire to help others, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's the thing that keeps your ego involved when you just are trying to receive just for the self.
Right.
And you have to think about every decision and every action. Like, I know this will help me, but how will it help anybody else? How will it help my family? How will it help the people that I love and just the earth in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, beautiful. And like to your point, like what, like if you look up the etymology of Kabbalah, like what does Kabbalah mean? It means to receive from something from something higher than yourself. And again, this is Epiphanies About Nothing, and nothing in terms of Kabbalah is Kether, it is your Godhood. So it's receiving from your highest self, not looking to receive self alone to that point that you mentioned. But
And it's like ingrained in us. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish that.
I was just saying it's ingrained in us to already have that desire just for the self, and it's kind of as we come up in society and the way it's set up, you're just trying to get by for yourself and your family at the end of the day. So we have to kind of reverse engineer it in order to have God in our life.
That's not tribe like. That's not tribe like.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for the tribe, man.
Yeah, we ain't looking out for nobody.
And we got so far away from that.
Right. All right.
What you're discussing is two different things. You're just discussing, down here and what's considered Malkut. This is the world of result. And what does that mean? The world of result. It means that the work that is being done on the other worlds, eventually it manifests into something down here. And so when you get into this information and you get into this knowledge, the difference is almost always going to come back to the intellectual animal versus the soul realizing itself as a supreme being and a offshoot, so to speak, of source. And the real difference is really just the intellectual animal just really wants to be right. The intellectual animal just wants the information. The intellectual animal just wants to be able to know a bunch of words and a bunch of concepts and tell you a bunch of different things. But the soul realizing itself understands that this information is not for it. It is for the people. It is for the people who may never get to this information and for the people who never understood that this information was even available for them. So you're really just talking about a difference between the intellectual animal and the supreme being. Look at how.
Intellectual animal and supreme being. Okay.
Yeah, because your intellectual animal is the person that just lives off his five senses. That's the person you were taught to be. That's the person that you develop going to your 7-8 year cycle in which you understood that you had a personality. Your personality was formed. That's the mask. That is the intellectual animal. The person that just wants to be right down here. It's always a difference between wanting to do what's right versus a person who just wants to be right. And the intellectual animal is happy just being right. They can care less about doing right. They're just happy about being right. And that's just the difference.
All right. I think the next chapter we can kind of go through pretty briefly, but it's titled "God Disguised as You," and it has to do with with who you think you are here as a person versus connecting with God's purpose. And just a few notes that I took from this chapter are that Michael Berg, the author of the book, mentioned that we are destined to become like God. We've been shaped into becoming inmates on the word potential that our destiny holds. Why does the Bible emphasize that man is created in God's image? Clearly, we have to have the same essence, the same potential. And, he mentioned the fact that the majority of, people, the majority of humans don't look to reach that potential of becoming anything other than, what they see in the mirror. Just a story, he mentioned, the Moses in the Bible, who was mentioned to be physically frail, and he spoke with a lisp, but Moses still became one of the greatest prophets, of all time. Greatness is reserved for any person, except for the one who finds the greatness. Like this chapter just focuses on like what if like you are somebody who is just over here kind of feeling sorry for yourself, but God kind of He created you to become a best-selling author or a musical artist. But majority of people out here are just thinking that they are here living their own lives and not looking to fulfill that purpose. Again, it is about getting out of that of just focusing on an ego self, connecting to your soul in order to find your purpose and moving within that purpose. I don't know if y'all had too much to add on to that, but majority of people out here, especially now during the so-called pandemic, whatever you want to call it, people are out here acting like they're bored. People acting like they're going through things. They've been given an opportunity to be able to focus on themselves and be able to determine kind of what their sole purpose is.
And said that it pretty much said that boredom comes from unmet potential. Like when we're playing video games, instead of writing a book, we're supposed to be writing, or watching a show, we're supposed to be meditating. And it's just so many distractions. Distractions keep us from our greatness, and that's pretty brief about brief summary of what that chapter was about. It's just distractions to keep you away from God and your higher power and your higher purpose and your higher potential. And anytime you're bored, you're just not manifesting your highest potential. When there's so many things you could be doing for yourself.
Like I said, it wasn't anything that had too many stories, this chapter specifically, but still wanted to mention and bring up that importance. It's like I don't know when other folks found meditation, but I know like when I did, that is when I became my most productive. Is when I learned how to listen to myself. When I learned how to not just mindlessly scroll through Netflix shows that like I really don't care about, or how to get off my phone during the day, how I can turn stuff off and really focus in on self and be outside in nature and get out and truly meditate. It's like that's when I was able to come up with so many ideas and I was able to somehow attract people into my life like almost effortlessly, that could help me fulfill what I needed.
Me too. I can attest to that. I was my most creative when I first started meditating. Just production, like it's just so natural. Like you get in a pocket when you are taking the time to tap into yourself. Certain.
And in those moments, what are you doing? You are creating. You're able. You have the inspiration, the awareness. You're tapped in. You're able to produce. You're able to create something that wasn't there before. So I mean, like to this whole point, you can about like, what is that doing? You're connecting to your Godhood.
Yeah, bringing down from the Captain, from God.
From that higher self.
Yeah, just pulling it down.
Yeah, and Rod, I don't know if you had anything to say there, but we can go ahead to chapter 3 now, which is called certainty. And
Faith.
Go ahead.
Faith.
No, I was just saying the screen just froze. I missed what you were saying at the end, but go ahead.
No, he was just saying if you had anything to say on that topic of just pretty much distractions and getting away from your potential.
Oh, well, the human likes to be entertained. And so your adversary, aka your ego, will grab onto everything that is going to distract you, because your adversary needs to be entertained. It needs to be away from boredom. It needs to feel like it's important. And the best way for it to feel like it's important is for it to do the things that it's used to doing. And your ego is used to being distracted. Your ego is used to being pulled away from purpose. Your ego just likes what it likes and it doesn't care why it likes it. So um sometimes, the split between understanding that you are God versus viewing God as something outside of you is something just as subtle and something extremely simple as in you needing to be distracted and you needing to be entertained.
Mm-hmm. Simple.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into chapter 3. Chapter 3 is an important topic. It's called certainty. And certainty, man. That idea of faith and
It's faith.
being solid.
Faith.
So yeah, it starts off with a story called the Kabbalistic Tale. I'm gonna read it real quick. So the Kabbalistic Tale, here it is. During the 9 months we spend in our mother's womb, the angel holds a candle for us, teaching us the wisdom of the universe. We behold everything from the beginning of the world to the end of the world. When we are born, the angel gives us a sharp blow on the upper lip and makes us forget everything we have learned. Yet memory traces remain in our souls. The idea of God resonates with us, and it is on this resonance, on these residual memories, that we build our consciousness. Yeah, so I know myself, like, and that idea of faith, like I say, growing up kind of in a Christian home, and that idea of being solid on what you believe in. And I don't know about y'all, but me, like, that certainly that solidity didn't really occur until I became aware of Kabbalah. It opened, more doors for me just in regard to understanding, like, what I thought, what I felt was always there. There's just so much more for me to understand in order to be able to ground myself in that faith. But like, I mean, yeah, just to that point, it's like that idea, we
Of faith.
that idea, but at the same time, like the idea of faith, but the idea of faith of the point of like us coming from somewhere besides here, like us coming from God to be here, and us truly being connected. Kind of, yeah, like anything that you want to share on understanding and having that certainty to move forward within your purpose, because I know that, like, I've had moments of how do I say it, like, I am certain in my faith within, knowing that I am connected to source, but at the same time, we still live in, amongst, within this world where we deal with mundane stuff that can get us out of that. Like,
I got my faith.
How do you deal with that and just that certainty?
I got my faith back this year. My mic on? Yeah. Early this year when I first started meditating, because before that, I grew up Christian, and in 2020 it kind of started wavering, and even before that, I would have moments of kind of like atheism or just not praying, but still just going with the flow of things. But in 2020, started meditating, and I got my faith back in just a higher power or a God. And it's just hard to keep that certainty sometimes, if we're not doing the right things that we have to do. But Kabbalah did help me regain that certainty and that faith even more so. And it just felt right, It just felt right when I started to tap into the Hebrew alphabet and the science of the Kabbalah. So And it also says that certainty is a vessel. In order to receive the light of God, we have to have a vessel. And certainty is that vessel. Faith is that vessel that we do receive God, the light of God in. So faith is key.
So you mentioned that idea of like of for lack of a better word, kind of just that a lack in faith,
Mhm.
within what it is that you were accustomed to. But then you started meditating. You started doing certain activities that helped,
Right.
solidify your faith and something.
Yeah, like just give me that real knowledge or that real knowing without a shadow of a doubt that I am connected to source.
Yeah, and that's that's right there. Like I would call those rituals, like, or how Hood talks about drive, dreams,
Yeah.
rituals,
Imagination.
imagination, vision, and focusing on energy. But like that point right there, it was the same for me. It was when I started doing rituals outside of the norm, when I started, kind of creating like my
Yeah.
own, my own, I don't know, events, like, for me, and setting up my own calendar to be like, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Despite what I have going on, like I'm gonna do these rituals for me.
Yeah.
That is
That's
how
definitely
was able to solidify myself and things that I couldn't describe started happening.
yeah. I'll say tapping into my ancestors as well solidified that certainty and that faith. And just like Jeff said, things that you can't even describe start happening. Get into that magic for real. Creating your own reality through faith, through that certainty.
Yeah, I guess the only way I was throughout my journey, the only way that I was able to pinpoint the understanding for me, or rather the comprehension for me of certainty, was the reality that there is no certainty. What we call certain doesn't necessarily go on the same basket as faith. So when you try to assess what we're talking about, in a lot of ways, for a lot of people, faith goes in the same basket with belief. And it's not what we're talking about here, because there's no belief in gnosis. Gnosis is knowing a thing, feeling a thing, being a thing, going through with something through the experience of it, knowing it, and it registering with you on such profound levels that you have a complete understanding of it, as opposed to you hear a good argument, you believe in that argument, so you're just going to fight for that argument. So when you talk about faith and you talk about certainty, when you talk about being able to receive, well, this avatar, what you call your body, is the temple. That temple was made to receive. And within this temple that you call your body is the most tangible and intangible evidence for that thing that people like to describe as faith or certainty. You actually have a body. You actually have a body that is going to continue to regenerate and regenerate, even if you do absolutely nothing. Now, whether you can reap the benefits of the potentiality that exists within that body is a whole nother story. But in actuality, you have a temple that has been made and created from source in order to receive. And you have a soul that exists within that temple. And as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing more certain than that. Everything outside of that can be chalked up to conjecture, and we can debate about it until we're blue in the face. But in actuality, you have a soul and you have a body that is housing that soul, which is the temple. And as far as I'm concerned, that's as far as certainty can go.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just kind of show. You look at the book. I don't know if you get to it here.
Yeah, I can
Look
see it.
diagram there, and it kind of showcases. It's like want to be careful and on that idea of like looking to receive something, but like you are looking to receive a certain amount of information, a certain amount of, and you have a vessel, you have like a container that is open to receiving that light, and that is understood through Kabbalah. But this chapter it just mentions like the amount of light, the amount of information you are able to receive is based on that certainty. And to Ross' point, like not necessarily just that idea of kind of faith in the sense of hope something happens, but like when it is like when you're doing that work, it is there, and the amount of work you put in equates to the amount of light or blessing that you can receive. So do those rituals, like be forward in your practice in order to be able to ensure that you can receive the most light in that cup possible. That was just a part of that chapter that I thought for sure.
So a knowing, not a faith.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
We do study Gnosticism. So
Yeah,
great.
knowing.
Yeah, and so the last chapter we were looking to go over today, chapter 4, is called a God formula. And this is an interesting kind of chapter. It goes back and forth in regard to oppositions and things like that. So this chapter within itself, it mentions that the world is a war of two opposites, light and darkness.
That's the first God formula. So yeah, that's number one. It's six God formula statements.
True.
That,
Yeah. And we'll go through them all. But at the same time, they all are, in one form or of another. It mentions kind of, the first one being light and darkness. They all kind of some form of like a positive or negative aspect.
For sure.
And I kind of based on kind of what was mentioning in chapter 3, I'd like him to touch upon that that idea of a light and darkness versus like in previous chapters we mentioned that the idea of the desire to receive for self alone versus kind of the your God self being that idea to do the work in order to share. Ra, you're someone who I like to get their takes on about this topic, and in the form of Kabbalah, I'm curious just in regard to what you have to say about the right hand path, the left hand path versus the middle path, and that idea of a good and bad, and people kind of discussing that.
Right. So, when it comes to these distinctions, right? Left hand path, right hand path, good or bad, right or left, up or down, cold or hot, negative or positive. What we have is, on one hand, you have religious upbringing, okay? Because in religion is the only place you're going to get a connotation that is going to explain a so-called good thing versus a so-called bad thing. You have exalted, and you have praised, and then you have sinful, right? These are all concepts that come out of religion that don't necessarily portray themselves equally when it comes to actual living and actual life. Because the first question I would ask anybody that wants to talk about a right hand path or a left hand path is, what is your definition of evil? Because people have these understandings of, or rather what they think are understandings when it comes to evil and what it is when it comes to being good. But you also have justifiable actions that you're allowed to portray, even if those actions are considered so-called evil. What do I mean when I say that? All right, well, you can say that you want things to be all right hand path, and you want everything to be all good, and you want everything to be, warm water instead of cold water. You rather use the up lever instead of the down like all of those things. You can have all of those things. But what happens when someone disrespects you? What happens when someone does something wrong to a family member? What happens when a kid is unjustly treated or a woman is disrespected or so forth and so on? I think you understand which way I'm going with this. When someone does something that you consider to be wrong towards you, and you're in the retribution phase, you're in the revenge phase, you're in the eye for an eye phase, does that mean you doing whatever you can do to them to um, revenge whatever was done to you? Does that make what you did good and what they did was bad? And it's not a trick question, it's rhetorical because it doesn't make sense, either answer that you give. So when you say something like evil, and you say something like bad, and then you say something like good, you're basically telling everybody that did something that's considered evil or bad that there's something wrong with them. And the only good people that exist are the people that did something good or did something right. So when you talk about the left hand path and you talk about the right hand path, and then you understand that the path is the middle path, well, the path is the middle path because you're supposed to be able to draw from both sides. Meaning you're not supposed to demonstratize yourself and cut yourself off because you got some bad parts. So if your toe doesn't act right today, are you gonna cut your toe off? You know what I'm saying? If your leg doesn't move properly today, you're gonna cut your leg off. If your arm doesn't throw a punch the right way, you're gonna cut your arm off. When we give these distinctions out, then we're setting those things up to be failures and to be an excuse as to why we didn't accomplish the things that we wanted to accomplish. But when you look around the world and you look around at the people who are supposedly getting the things that you want and supposedly, living their best lives, how many of them can you point to and say they did only good? And how many can you point to that you could say it did only bad? You would probably have to be more consciously aware and understanding that anybody that does anything has a level of good and a level of bad in it. It only matters about your balance, and it only matters is how that thing that you are doing, how it affects you, and then how that then turns around and ends up affecting other people. So middle path is drawn from both paths. Right path is cutting off your left path. Left path is cutting off your right path. The idea is, do you really want to make these distinctions and go through everything that you experience or everything that you're seeing and have to put labels on it as good, bad, right, other, up, down, left, right? Or do you want to experience that thing and incorporate it and then use it for whatever it is that you're trying to go? Right hand, left hand is for cult people. Right hand, left hand is for people who are in opposition to the other side. Middle path uses both. So, small thing to compare it to would be like a river stream, right? The left-hand path will be the person that's going to go against the river to get to their destination along this stream of water. The right-hand path will be the person that's going to go with the wind. They're going to go with the flow of the river and just let the river take them wherever they're going to end up going. There's no good or bad to either one. The difference is the person who's taking the left-hand path, who's going against the grain, they're going to get all of the hard stuff first, and then they're going to expand themselves and transmute themselves into exactly what they're looking for. Whereas the person going down the right-hand path, they're just going to go with the flow and do as least amount as possible and eventually hope to end up where they want to be. So you can take your choice between paths. You can distinguish between good or bad. But at the end of the day, in order for you to get the full totality of whatever it is that you're doing, you got to embrace both paths. You're not going to do it from one side or the other. Sorry, I took too long.
No, you didn't. And
Yeah, he was good.
the book went through kind of what was mentioned, is we're going through like 6 different specific areas, but at the same time, I feel as though it had kind of a purpose of what it was trying to get to, and the book focused on connecting with that lightness versus the dark, and I think that there is some validity to that. There is validity to what the chapter was mentioning and choosing, and the aspect of what it meant in regard to light versus darkness. I think it had to do with kind of how we're looking at it is, doing the work in order to share, in order to be able to express what we learned through this versus that desire to just learn for yourself and hold it in this information for the sense of your own ego to feel superior. But I wanted to hear what Ra had to say. I thought that was very profound and a little bit more on topic than what the chapter may have had to say, just in regard to the differences between the left and right hand path, because we're on left and we're on right, but the goal is to stay balanced and to be on that middle path. And anything you wanted to mention, Wu, specifically on how the chapter mentioned the God formula, the 2 sides, or
so it pretty much says the world is in the war of 2 opposite forces, light and darkness, and pretty much saying it's kind of breaking it down in a different format than left-hand path, right-hand path. It's more of either you're moving towards God or you're moving towards darkness. So you're moving towards fulfillment in life, or you're moving towards pain and suffering based off the decisions we make on an everyday basis. And whether we're feeding our ego or we're feeding the pursuit of God. And I like how it framed it into these 6 topics, which the first one was the light and darkness. And the second one was either we're getting that fulfillment in life or pain and suffering. The third is we create our lives by the forces we choose to connect with. So every time we have a decision to make, we can pick the going towards God, or we can pick going towards the darkness. Number 4 was we connect to the 2 forces through the law of similarity. So we connect to and become what we become like. Okay. Yeah. Well, I got to think about that one.
So it says, are you looking to become more like joy from fulfillment in life, or choosing pain, suffering, and death? I think us as men, as Black men, whatever, like we deal with enough situations and enough folk that we know kind of people who choose to like what they like to focus on, what they like to to kind of raise up. And at a time like, these days when there's just so much loss going on, there's a lot of distractions.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, I don't want to call it loss of life like a distraction, because it's real to people, but at the same time it's like, are you focusing on the higher message that's going on with this, or like are you over here like talking about the BS, like to be a part of the group and talk about the BS?
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you really trying to find what that message is behind what occurred, what happened? Are you really trying to find like the life in it, and share that message?
Mm-hmm.
And
Or
share,
you just tuning into the ritual.
yeah, how other people can really find light in what's really going on.
Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead. You can finish the rest.
Yeah, so number 4 is pretty much saying law of attraction. If you want to be like God, like it says, becoming like God is law of attraction. You have to think like God, and every move you make has to be towards being more like God, and always questioning yourself to see, are you more like God yet? And number 5 is we become like God by systematically destroying the ego. The desire to receive for the self alone is not like God. He does not receive from anyone. Connecting to God is a cosmic case of mistaken self-identity. So that's pretty much saying mistaken self-identity. We already are God, but we just don't understand ourselves.
Yeah.
Number 6.
Also not mundane lives.
Mm-hmm. We become more like God by transforming into beings of sharing, because God is the infinite of sharing.
Put your coat on in case it gets cold at night.
So because God is a force of infinite sharing.
Yeah.
So yeah, when that's why we started this podcast, because we are over here studying Kabbalah. It's a discipline that I take serious, and I know these brothers take serious as well.
Yeah.
And we can't just keep taking information and to learn for self alone. That's
all we've been doing, other than just sharing with each other when we do talk or whatnot. But now we're trying to take it to a bigger level, to share with people and people to share with us, and we're going to get deeper into the Kabbalah, and this is pretty much just a starting point. A good reference book is to break down the mind frame to be in. That's when we'll start working with the Kabbalah more. Yeah,
and there's plenty of texts that all of us are going over and studying that we want to go over. We're doing this because to the point of the book, like, are we doing this to collect information for ourselves, or are we doing this for self alone? Or are we looking to share with the collective? And the purpose is to share with the collective. And we're not doing this, because we expect to get views and things like that. We're taking this discipline seriously, and we're looking to do our part as best we can. And any folks who want to be a part of that, please let us know. Feel free to reach out to us.
For sure.
Yeah, go ahead. Again, I can be found at g.elijah144 on Instagram. Again, I'll mention my business as well, cannabis delivery service, the DC area. Again, Instagram, ElijahGreen144. Check me out. But yeah, this was the first episode of Epiphanies About Nothing.
For sure.
Yeah, hope anybody was able to take something out of this, and a positive note, and be able to take this and apply it to what they have going on within their lives. This is just a start, and it's something that we're figuring out. We keep going, pushing, learning, and expanding, and we definitely would love other people to be a part of the conversation as well. So feel free to reach out to me or anybody else. I'll let y'all say y'all pieces. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. to this thing we're trying to build. You can find me on Instagram at Woo Got It Official. Yeah, we'll be back.
Yes, thank you to the brothers. Sacred Serpent 823, Sacred Serpent, Sacred Dark Serpent 823 on Instagram. I really appreciate the space the brothers provided me with today. If I could leave with any parting shots every time I come on the podcast, I'm gonna leave with some shots for the folk. First, the thing that I would like to leave you guys with is understanding your godhood and stepping into your godhood once you're into that realization. Understanding that twos no longer apply. When you're born into this world, your fall, the fall of man, is meant to describe how you were born into two. You see how when you get down here, everything is about right and wrong, good or bad, up and down, left or right, negative and positive. Becoming God is removing yourself from the two, because the human is the only one that needs to break information down into concepts of two. The human needs to compare it versus something to compare it to what it actually is. Always in twos. When you're a God and you know that you're a God, you no longer have any need for the comparison. There is no good or bad. It's just you. So, peace.
Peace.
So, thank you, bro.
Be good.
So.